I came to the heart of Borneo to map the migration routes of the Bornean orangutan, not to meet the dead, not to chase whispers that coil through peat swamp forests like smoke from unseen fires. I came for science, for GPS coordinates, camera trap footage, behavioral logs that might convince distant bureaucrats to halt the spread of palm oil plantations devouring this ancient ecosystem. My reasons were practical, my equipment precise, motion sensor cameras sealed against humidity, a satellite uplink that crackled more than it carried voice, a field journal filled with grids and timestamps, and the careful notations of a man who believes in measurable reality. I am a primatologist, a rationalist. I trust what instruments record, not what the mind conjures in isolation. I came here because the silence appealed to me, not the absence of sound, but the absence of demand. No emails, no grant deadlines, no voices asking things of me, just the slow pulse of a forest older than memory. But the forest doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares if your footsteps are heavy with arrogance or light with respect. My camp is deep in the Kapua's Hulu, nestled in a bend where the river forks into 1,000 black veins, each one carrying secrets from mountains no map names. The canopy is so thick that noon feels like twilight, a perpetual green gloom where sunlight filters through in fractured beams, illuminating dust motes and drifting spores like slow ghosts. The air doesn't just hang, it presses. Wet, warm, clinging to your skin like a second layer, smelling of decaying figs, rotting lianas, and something older, deeper, wet stone from a forgotten well, the scent of earth before the first rain. At night, the trees don't drip, they sigh. A slow exhalation that makes the leaves shiver, a sound felt in the chest more than heard by the ears. You learn to sleep with your mouth open, breathing in the forest's breath until your own lungs forget their rhythm. I've been alone 7 weeks, long enough for the city self to slough away like dead bark, long enough to learn the true silence not as absence, but as presence. Orangutans grunt at dawn, their calls muffled by mist, low and guttural, a language of reassurance between mothers and infants hidden in the high canopy. I've recorded 3 distinct family groups, noted their feeding patterns, their avoidance of areas near logging roads. None of them vocalize after sunset. That was my first clue that something here operates by rules no field guide documents. Hornbills glide silent over the canopy by midday, great pied hornbills with wingspans wider than my arms, shadows passing over shadows, their flight so effortless it seems they're not moving at all, but the forest is flowing beneath them. At dusk, the cicadas stop. Not all at once, one by one, like lights being switched off down a long corridor, until the last holdout falls silent. Then comes the breath hold. 3 minutes where even the frogs forget how to croak, where the wind dies between one rustle and the next, where the very air seems to pause mid-inhale. Locals call it nafas hutan, the forest breath. During those 3 minutes, you don't move. You don't speak. You simply exist, waiting to see if you're worthy of being noticed. That's when I first felt it. Night 43. I was checking my camera traps near a strangler fig, its roots coiled like sleeping serpents around the host tree, bark slick with moss and condensation. The breath hold had just settled. I felt the shift before I saw anything. A pressure change in the air, the sense of being regarded not with threat, but with ancient patience. Like the space behind me had thickened, grown dense with attention. The hairs on my neck stood up. I turned slowly, rifle within reach, but not in hand. Nothing. Just the green gloom and the smell of wet earth and decaying fruit. But on the mossy trunk of the fig, at eye level, 3 parallel scratches. Fresh, deep, not claw marks too straight, too evenly spaced, too deliberate, like a signature or a question. I didn't run, didn't raise my voice. I bowed my head the way the old man in Putusabo taught me before I left, his hands gnarled like tree roots, his eyes milky with cataracts but sharp as flint. "The forest sees pride," he'd said, pressing a strip of white bark into my palm. "It eats it. Walk like you carry water on your head. Light, careful, listening." That night, unable to sleep, I checked my gear before bed. My water filter, I'd left it inside, disassembled on its hook to dry after filtering the tannin black river water. Now it sat on a flat stone by the riverbank, clean, assembled, filled with clear water. Impossible. The river here runs black as ink, thick with tannins from decaying vegetation, staining everything it touches. This water was clear as glass, reflecting the weak starlight like a mirror. I didn't drink it. Poured it carefully onto the moss beside the stone, a gesture I didn't understand but felt compelled to make. The scent lingered. Clean, cold, like mountain springs I hadn't tasted since childhood. Next morning, my journal lay open on my sleeping mat. I'd closed it the night before, tucked beneath my pillow. Now it rested precisely centered, weighted by a smooth river stone I kept in my pack. Open to yesterday's entry. Orangutan group Gamma observed near tributary 4. Juvenile male exhibited nest-building behavior. Weather, overcast, 32°C. Below it in my handwriting, same blue ink, same slight rightward slant, I developed copying field notes as a student a new line. He is not angry. He is waiting for you to ask. I never wrote that. But the pen pressure on the downstrokes, the way the tail of the Y curled upward, mine. Uncannily, impossibly mine. I ran my fingers over the letters. The ink bled slightly, just like mine does in this humidity, yet the page smelled faintly of wet stone and old bark. 2 days later, needing to check my northern traps and clear my head, I followed a trail of broken branches too precise for animal passage, too fresh for storm damage. It led me to a clearing I'd never seen on any satellite image or topographic map. In the center stood a single Kayuputi tree, white wood, sacred to the Dayak, its bark peeled in long, deliberate strips, revealing the pale flesh beneath. Tied to its trunk with rattan vine, dyed black with iron-rich mud, hung a small bundle of bones. not animal. Human finger bones, yellowed with age, strung on a cord of black fiber woven with orchid roots. A pusaka, an heirloom, left not as a warning, but as an offering, a bridge. Last night, I woke to a sound like stones grinding together deep underground. Not an earthquake, not the groan of shifting timber, a voice. It didn't come from the woods. It came from inside my own skull, resonating in the hollows behind my eyes, speaking in a language that had no words, only meaning. You walk on our bones, you breathe our air. Will you listen or will you leave? I grabbed my headlamp, heart hammering against my ribs, and stepped outside into the suffocating dark. The fog was so thick I couldn't see my hand. But on the path leading away from camp footprints, bare feet, large. The stride too long for any human I'd met in the longhouses along the river. And between the toes, strands of fine black hair that glistened like wet spider silk, catching the faint beam of my lamp before vanishing into mist. I didn't follow, didn't call out, just stood there until sweat cooled on my skin, knowing with a certainty that bypassed reason, the scratches on the fig weren't a threat. They were an invitation, a test. The forest wasn't demanding I leave. It was asking if I was ready to stay not as a visitor, but as a witness. This morning, dawn barely a suggestion behind the canopy. I found my satellite phone at the base of the Cayuputi tree, screen cracked, battery dead, useless. All my data, my maps, my proof of existence in the modern world gone. And beside it, my field knife. Clean, sharp. Placed handle first toward me, the way a gift is offered in Dayak tradition, a tool, or a key. I left my pack by the tree, my maps, my data drives, all the proof I was ever here. They simply weren't necessary anymore. But my cup remains on the mossy root where I left it yesterday afternoon. Clay. Chipped at the rim from a fall in the market at Sintang. Steam curling in delicate spirals against the damp air. Black coffee. No sugar. I didn't make it. Didn't fill the kettle. Didn't measure the grounds. But I'll drink it. Because the one who left it, whether forest spirit or the quiet truth I've spent a lifetime outrunning, knows I've stopped asking questions. Knows that 7 weeks of silence has worn me down to the bone. That the memory of my mentor's laugh has faded until only the shape of his absence remains. That sometimes a man in the deep peat swamp would trade every rational explanation for the simple comfort of a cup made by hands that understand his habits. If you find this journal, don't come looking. Don't send search parties with radios and thermal cameras. Don't speak my name in these woods unless you're prepared to hear it answered in the sigh of leaves. Just leave a strip of white bark at the base of the Cayuputi tree. Lay it gently, facing east the way villagers leave offerings for Antu, the spirits of the forest. Then walk away without looking back, without listening for footsteps behind you. And if you hear a man humming a Dayak lullaby from the tree line, the one about the hornbill carrying stars in its beak, The melody my mentor sang while setting camera traps in the rain. Don't answer. Don't turn. Don't raise your rifle. Walk slower. Make space in your awareness. Let the silence fill the space between your steps. He's not lost. He's learning the language of roots, the slow speech of mycelium networks, the creak of ancient timber, the whisper of water through peat. He's becoming part of the breath hold, the watcher in the green gloom, the reason orangutans fall silent when a stranger walks alone. The forest breathes. He breathes with it. And somewhere deep in the heart of Borneo, a great ape lifts its head not toward the path, but toward the kayu puti tree sniffing the air, eyes wise with centuries, sensing the new presence that walks these slopes now. Not ghost, not memory, but guardian, keeper of the silence between heartbeats. One more thread woven into the forest's endless, breathing tapestry, waiting for the next lonely man to arrive with his instruments and his need for quiet, ready to learn his habits, ready to make him coffee, ready to show him that some solitudes are not empty but full of belonging. He's home.